Their demands for perfection became death sentences, their need for control spiraling into unimaginable tragedy. These 6 women pushed boundaries until reality pushed back with deadly force, proving that sometimes the most dangerous enemy is our own relentless need to be right. It was March 15, 2012, and Linda Morrison was doing what she did best, making retail workers miserable. The 52-year-old department store manager had just spent 45 minutes absolutely tearing into a teenage cashier over a $12 return at Westfield Shopping Center in Riverside, California. Linda's behavior that evening was textbook entitlement. She had berated the young employee relentlessly, demanding to speak with corporate headquarters and threatening to ruin the store's reputation online over a trivial policy dispute. Her voice carried throughout the store as she loudly proclaimed to other waiting customers that customer service was dead and the staff was completely incompetent. She wasn't finished there. Linda demanded the store manager provide written documentation of what she called policy violations and insisted on corporate contact information so she could file complaints with the Better Business Bureau. Her decade-plus experience as a retail manager had taught her exactly which buttons to push to make minimum wage workers squirm. After her exhausting 10-hour workday, this confrontation was just another Tuesday for Linda, who was known for her impossibly high standards and zero tolerance for anything less than perfection from service workers. As Linda rushed through the mall at 6:45 p.m., she was loaded down with multiple shopping bags and her oversized purse, wearing brand new leather-soled shoes she'd purchased that morning. She was already running late to meet her husband for dinner, adding to her already elevated stress levels. The ascending escalator she approached had been making concerning grinding noises for 2 weeks. Maintenance requests sat unaddressed due to budget constraints, a detail that would prove crucial later. Distracted by a text from her husband about dinner plans, Linda stepped onto the escalator without paying attention. Her smooth leather soles found no grip on the recently cleaned, still damp metal steps. Near the top, physics took over. Her feet slipped completely on the wet surface, and as she grabbed desperately for the handrail, her heavy bags shifted her center of gravity backward. The momentum became unstoppable. Linda's head struck the sharp metal edge of an escalator step with devastating force, causing severe trauma that knocked her unconscious instantly. Her loose scarf became tangled in the escalator mechanism as panicked shoppers rushed to help. The emergency stop activated within 30 seconds, but Linda had already sustained fatal head trauma from the initial impact. Emergency responders arrived within 8 minutes, but she was pronounced dead at the scene due to a traumatic brain injury. The mall immediately shut down all escalators for safety inspections and installed additional warning signs. Investigation revealed the escalator met safety standards, but recommended more frequent maintenance schedules. The incident serves as a stark reminder that life can change in an instant, regardless of how much control we think we have over our circumstances. It was June 3, 2013, when Patricia Chen's relentless pursuit of food safety truth would lead to a horrific end at Eugene, Oregon's downtown farmers market. Patricia Chen, a 47-year-old food blogger, had made exposing questionable vendor practices her personal mission. Known for her abrasive interrogation style and complete disregard for social boundaries, Patricia had earned a reputation as the market's most dreaded visitor. Vendors would cringe when they spotted her approaching, knowing she would monopolize their time with aggressive questioning while driving away paying customers. Her blog followers praised her dedication, but those who encountered Patricia in person found her insufferably self-righteous and confrontational. She treated every vendor interaction like a criminal investigation, showing zero empathy for small business owners trying to make a living. That Saturday morning, she arrived with her laptop, ready to document what she suspected were fraudulent organic certifications at the bustling market. Patricia cornered an organic produce vendor for a grueling 20 minutes, loudly questioning his certification credentials and demanding to see documentation while frustrated customers formed a growing line behind her. Her voice carried across the market as she announced she was exposing fraudulent organic claims and threatened to report him to state agriculture authorities. When the vendor politely asked her to lower her voice, Patricia declared she had every right to protect consumers from his lies and began filming him without permission. She blocked other customers from approaching the stand, completely oblivious to their mounting frustration as she continued her interrogation. Market management approached her multiple times, requesting she move along, but Patricia dismissed them with the same arrogant attitude that had made her so many enemies. Her tunnel vision and obsessive need to be right blinded her to everything else happening around her. At 10:30 a.m., Patricia moved behind the delivery truck to photograph produce boxes, her attention completely focused on her camera screen. The same obsessive focus that made her so insufferable now put her in mortal danger. The driver, unable to see her in his blind spot despite having mirrors, began backing up. The truck's backup alarm had malfunctioned, but even if it had worked, Patricia's history showed she rarely paid attention to anything that didn't serve her investigative agenda. She remained absorbed in her documentation, unaware of the truck moving toward her until it was too late. The truck's rear bumper struck Patricia with devastating force, knocking her to the ground and causing multiple fractures. The rear wheel rolled over her lower torso before the driver realized what had happened and stopped. Patricia suffered severe internal bleeding and went into shock, but remained conscious, unable to move from where she lay. Paramedics arrived within 6 minutes of the accident and provided immediate medical attention, but her injuries were too severe. Despite their rapid response, Patricia died from internal bleeding while being transported to the hospital, her final investigation ending in tragedy. The farmers market immediately implemented new safety protocols, including designated vehicle routes and mandatory spotters for all deliveries. They installed backup cameras and proximity sensors on all delivery vehicles to prevent similar accidents. The truck driver faced vehicular manslaughter charges but was ultimately found not criminally liable due to the equipment failure that disabled the backup alarm. Patricia Chen's death became a tragic reminder of how obsessive behavior and disregard for surroundings can have deadly consequences. It was September 12, 2014, when Margaret Thompson's dedication to neighborhood standards would lead to a tragic encounter in Charlotte, North Carolina. Margaret Thompson, 55, served as an active member of her neighborhood association in Oakwood residential area. She embodied the quintessential neighborhood enforcer, the type who measured grass heights with rulers, kept detailed logs of minor infractions, and believed her interpretation of community standards was absolute law. Margaret possessed an unwavering sense of superiority, treating every homeowner like a potential violator who needed constant supervision. She took immense pride in maintaining community standards and spent her days ensuring every resident followed the established guidelines. That afternoon, Margaret had confronted 3 different neighbors about various violations she discovered during her rounds. Her first stop involved a family whose children had created chalk art on their own driveway. Margaret's controlling nature emerged as she demanded they remove the colorful drawings immediately, citing community standards. The Johnson family became her next target when Margaret noticed their garbage cans remained visible from the street 30 minutes past the designated pickup time. Displaying classic entitled behavior, she threatened them with a $200 fine for this violation. Mrs. Garcia's rose garden caught Margaret's attention next. The roses had grown 2 inches over the property line, and Margaret's condescending attitude was on full display as she loudly berated the woman, insisting the overgrowth was destroying neighborhood property values. When a neighbor suggested Margaret was being unreasonable, her defensive superiority complex kicked in as she declared herself the only person who truly cared about maintaining standards and threatened to report them to city authorities. At 7:15 p.m., Margaret began her usual evening route to check properties and ensure compliance with neighborhood guidelines. She carried her phone and notebook to document any issues she observed during her walk. The weather was clear but windy, with gusts reaching up to 25 miles per hour throughout the day. A local utility company was performing routine power line maintenance in the area, with crews working on elevated lines despite the challenging wind conditions. Margaret stopped beneath a utility pole to photograph what she believed was an improperly maintained yard. 30 feet above her, a utility worker was securing a power line that had been loosened by the persistent wind. A sudden gust of wind caused the worker to lose control of a heavy metal cable clamp weighing 8 pounds. The clamp fell from the pole just as Margaret looked up after hearing the worker's warning shout. The metal clamp struck Margaret directly on the head, causing severe head trauma. She immediately collapsed and lost consciousness within seconds of impact. Other residents and the utility crew immediately called 911 and attempted first aid while waiting for emergency responders. Margaret was quickly transported to the hospital, where surgeons performed emergency surgery to address her traumatic brain injury. Despite the medical team's efforts, Margaret died 3 hours later from the severe head trauma she sustained in the accident. The utility company responded to the tragedy by implementing stricter safety protocols for work performed during windy conditions. They also improved their equipment securing procedures to prevent similar accidents. The neighborhood association established a memorial garden in Margaret's honor at the local community center, recognizing her dedication to the community despite the circumstances of her death. New safety regulations were adopted requiring ground-level safety zones during all overhead utility work, ensuring better protection for pedestrians and residents in the area. Margaret Thompson's final day of neighborhood enforcement ended in an unexpected tragedy, her relentless pursuit of violations, ultimately placing her in the path of falling danger. It was October 8, 2015, when Susan Rodriguez's dedication to her children's education would lead to an unthinkable tragedy at Lincoln Middle School in Boise, Idaho. Susan Rodriguez was the kind of parent every school administrator dreaded encountering. The 43-year-old mother had developed a reputation as the school's most demanding and theatrical complainant, someone who seemed to thrive on creating drama and making scenes to get her way. While she claimed to advocate for students, her real motivation appeared to be the attention and sense of power she gained from intimidating school staff and disrupting normal operations. That evening, Susan had arrived a full 90 minutes before the scheduled school board meeting. True to form, she immediately launched into her attention-seeking routine, cornering the principal and demanding immediate changes to the lunch menu while threatening media exposure over food quality concerns. Her voice echoed through the hallways as she criticized the school's technology policies in front of other parents, performing for her audience as she declared the administration was failing their children and demanded a complete policy overhaul. When staff reminded her the meeting hadn't officially begun, Susan dramatically insisted her concerns were too important to wait. With her usual flair for theatrics, she demanded an immediate audience with the superintendent, pulling out her phone to film herself making accusations against school staff. These videos quickly found their way to social media, where she claimed the school was covering up serious issues, another calculated move in her ongoing campaign to position herself as the school's self-appointed watchdog. What Susan didn't fully grasp was the dangerous environment surrounding her that evening. Lincoln Middle School was in the midst of major renovations, with scaffolding and construction equipment scattered throughout the building. Construction workers had spent the day installing new lighting fixtures in the ceiling above the main hallway where Susan now stood. At 6:20 p.m., as Susan reviewed her presentation materials in the hallway outside the meeting room, she heard an ominous cracking sound from above. The renovation work had weakened a section of the ceiling tile, and the combination of the new lighting fixtures' weight and compromised structural integrity created a deadly hazard. The ceiling tile, along with a heavy light fixture, plummeted approximately 12 feet from above. Susan had no time to react as the debris struck her head and shoulder with devastating force. The impact knocked her unconscious immediately, causing a fractured skull and severe neck injury. Other parents and school staff rushed to help, calling 911 within minutes. Susan was quickly transported to the hospital where medical teams fought to save her life. Despite their efforts, she succumbed to complications from her head injury 2 days later. The investigation that followed revealed a sobering truth. Proper safety protocols had not been followed during the renovation work. The school district was forced to confront the reality that its oversight had contributed to a preventable tragedy. Susan's death sparked immediate changes. The school was temporarily closed for comprehensive safety inspections, and the district implemented new safety requirements for all construction work in occupied buildings. Her family, channeling their grief into purpose, worked with the district to establish safety guidelines that were adopted district-wide. Susan Rodriguez's story serves as a stark reminder that even the most routine activities can turn deadly when safety protocols are ignored. Her legacy lives on in the enhanced safety measures that now protect countless other parents and students throughout the district. It It was August 19, 2016, when a routine grocery shopping trip in Mesa, Arizona, turned deadly for 49-year-old Carol Williams, a woman whose obsession with parking etiquette would ultimately cost her everything. Carol Williams wasn't just any ordinary shopper at the grocery store plaza in Mesa. She had earned a reputation as the parking lot's unofficial enforcer, someone who took it upon herself to police the behavior of fellow customers. Her mission was simple but consuming: ensure everyone followed proper parking etiquette. On previous occasions, Carol had made quite the spectacle of herself. She would follow SUV owners into stores, loudly demanding they move their improperly parked vehicles. She once blocked a store entrance for several minutes, announcing to bewildered customers that inconsiderate parking ruins shopping for everyone. When store management tried to intervene, Carol declared she was performing a public service and even threatened to organize boycotts against businesses that wouldn't support her crusade. Her methods were aggressive and confrontational. She would demand that store managers take down license plate numbers and permanently ban offending vehicle owners from parking lots. To Carol, this wasn't just about parking spaces, it was about justice, order, and doing what she believed was right for the community. That sweltering August afternoon, Carol had just finished her weekly grocery shopping. As she loaded bags into her car, something caught her eye that made her blood boil. A vehicle brazenly parked across two spaces in the busy weekend lot. The parking area was packed with shoppers, and Carol decided this transgression couldn't go unanswered. At exactly 2:45 p.m., Carol approached the offending vehicle with her usual determination. She had a note ready, prepared to deliver another lesson in parking courtesy. What she didn't notice was the teenage employee working nearby, collecting shopping carts with a motorized cart pusher. The cart collection equipment had been recently serviced, but the brakes weren't responding as sharply as they normally would. The young employee was managing a long train of carts, focused on his task and unaware that Carol had stepped between the parked vehicles. Focused entirely on writing her stern note about parking etiquette, Carol stepped backward without looking. She moved directly into the path of the approaching cart train just as the employee realized the danger and tried to stop. The reduced braking power of the cart pusher meant the momentum couldn't be halted in time. The lead cart struck Carol with enough force to knock her down onto the unforgiving asphalt. Her head hit the pavement with a sickening impact, and the weight of multiple carts rolled over her legs, causing immediate fractures. The parking lot fell silent except for the sound of scattered groceries and the employee's horrified shouts for help. Carol lay unconscious, her crusade for parking justice having led her to this tragic moment. Emergency services arrived within 10 minutes of the accident, their sirens cutting through the Arizona heat. Paramedics worked frantically to stabilize Carol, but the head injury was severe. She was rushed to the hospital where medical teams fought to save her life. 3 hours later, Carol Williams was pronounced dead from her head injury. The woman who had spent so much energy trying to correct others' behavior had become the victim of a tragic accident that could have been avoided. The grocery store responded by implementing comprehensive safety changes. New training programs were established for all cart collection employees, and the cart pusher maintenance schedule was completely overhauled. Additional safety mirrors were installed throughout the parking lot to improve visibility and prevent similar accidents. Perhaps most significantly, the store created a customer courtesy program designed to address parking issues through management intervention rather than allowing customer confrontations to escalate. Carol Williams' death serves as a sobering reminder that sometimes our desire to enforce rules and correct others can put us in harm's way, and that tragedy can strike in the most ordinary moments of our daily lives. It was July 4th, 2017, when a dedication to community service turned deadly for 46-year-old Jennifer Walsh at Riverside Park in Portland, Oregon, a woman whose relentless pursuit of perfection would ultimately cost her everything. Jennifer Walsh was a dedicated community volunteer who helped organize the annual 4th of July celebration at Riverside Park. Her responsibility was coordinating vendor setup and ensuring all safety protocols were followed during the event. But Jennifer's approach had become increasingly confrontational and rigid. She had spent 2 hours berating food vendors about their setup locations, insisting they move their booths despite having approved permits for their current spots. Jennifer demanded that the live music be turned down during soundcheck, threatening to call police about noise violations, even though the event had proper permits. Her demands escalated as she confronted families setting up picnic areas, claiming they were violating official event protocols and demanding they relocate to less desirable spots. When other volunteers suggested she was being too rigid, Jennifer declared she was the only one who takes event safety seriously and threatened to report violations to the city. The park was hosting its largest Independence Day celebration in years, with multiple food vendors, live music, and fireworks planned. Jennifer was checking on the setup of a temporary stage structure that had been erected by a local rental company. High winds earlier in the day had caused some concern about the stability of temporary structures throughout the park. The weather conditions made Jennifer even more vigilant about potential safety issues as she conducted her inspections. At 4:30 p.m., Jennifer was inspecting the stage area when she noticed some loose securing cables that immediately raised her concerns. Determined to get a better look at the rigging system, she climbed onto the stage platform to examine the overhead mounting points more closely. As she studied the connections, a sudden gust of wind struck the temporary structure with unexpected force. One of the overhead lighting trusses, weighing 150 pounds, shifted under the wind pressure and broke free from its mounting system. The heavy truss fell approximately 15 feet through the air. Jennifer tried to move out of the way, but there wasn't enough time or space to escape the falling equipment. The massive truss struck Jennifer with devastating force, causing severe chest and head injuries that left her trapped under the twisted metal and lighting equipment. The woman who had spent her day ensuring everyone else followed safety protocols had become the victim of a structural failure. Other volunteers and emergency responders worked frantically to free Jennifer from under the heavy equipment. Within 8 minutes, they had managed to lift the truss and extract her from the wreckage. Jennifer was immediately airlifted to the trauma center, where surgeons fought to save her life. Despite their efforts, she died from her injuries during emergency surgery. The Independence Day celebration was canceled immediately following the accident. All temporary structures were immediately inspected as officials worked to determine if other equipment posed similar risks. The tragedy prompted comprehensive changes in how Portland handled community events. New safety regulations were implemented requiring certified engineers to approve all temporary stage installations before any event could proceed. The days of relying solely on volunteer oversight for complex structural safety were over. The community established an annual safety award in Jennifer's name for outstanding volunteer service, ensuring her dedication would be remembered while emphasizing the importance of professional safety standards. Jennifer Walsh's death serves as a sobering reminder that good intentions and dedication must be balanced with proper expertise, and that sometimes the very commitment that drives us to serve our communities can put us in unexpected danger. If these bone-chilling tales of entitlement gone wrong sent shivers down your spine, then you need to click now to see the most jaw-dropping, unbelievable content that will haunt your thoughts for days.